Hey everybody, welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. Good evening, Hannah.
Good evening, and how are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well. It's been a
Yeah.
long last couple of weeks, but we're good.
Yeah.
Good.
We had a good friend Martin on here
Yeah.
last episode. It took me a while I didn't get that episode out because we actually had some recording problems happen. I dropped off, and then I think you dropped off.
The
So I
only
had to.
the only stable one was Martin, so thank goodness he was here.
Yes, he was here, but I will say, which I haven't even said this to him, but for some reason, every time we record with him, if it's the three of us or if it's just me and him, his audio is always in the end. His audio is always delayed.
Whoa, what?
His video doesn't sync with his audio, so I have to always move his audio like
Oh no.
8 frames. It's so weird. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's the type of camera he's using but ours are always synced. And it's so I don't know what it is, but it's something.
But it's the whole track, right? It's not like
Correct.
it's lagged and then it's there.
It's recorded. It's just recorded somehow. His audio is somehow just delayed because I got to move it up, not back. So
Okay.
yeah,
So it's not like a
it's not bad.
horrendous
No.
lift, but at the same time, it's just straight up annoying because then you got to find that sweet spot where it's actually synced properly.
And that's why I have to have separate tracks because if it was mixed, then I wouldn't be able to do it.
That would have been bad.
Yeah. So he sends me his audio, and then so I have to move the Riverside one, and then I have to get his on there and sync it anyway. So, but I had to find the points where it cut off, and then I cut parts of it out, and so I actually had to do some. Because usually I don't have to do much editing for these things.
Right.
But I had to do some editing like Friday night, and then Saturday night I finally got it out. But anyway, good episode. We had some comments from last week, so we'll go over those. But
Awesome.
yeah, thanks for coming back, everyone. First and foremost, thanks to our patrons. I did, again, I haven't forgot about you guys. I actually have my packages I'm going to send to our master patrons ready to go here soon. So I'm not even going to show them because I want them to be surprised. So got some good stuff for you guys. But thank you all for supporting us all this time, and we really, really appreciate it. As always, we will. It's the end of July here coming out, so we're going to talk a little bit more about the Jedi Order. And then we're only going to be about 3 weeks away from the 2-episode premiere of Ahsoka on August 23rd. Which it's great. It was great because tonight I went to see Haunted Mansion. Rosario Dawson is in that movie. Of course, I was telling my daughter Sam, I said, "There's Ahsoka," and she was like, "Whoa, yeah, that's right." So. Yeah, just pumped about that. Can't wait for Ahsoka to start.
It's gonna be great.
Let's see, because it's been a while since what was the last thing we got from Star Wars? Is Bad Batch?
It's been a hot second. I thought Mandalorian season 3 was after Bad Batch.
Mandalorian season 3? Yes, you're right. So Mandalorian season 3.
Is that really? No, Visions.
Yeah, Visions, I guess if you want to count Visions. But as far as like week-to-week series.
Gotcha. I think.
That was Mando, right? I can't
All
believe
right.
I don't even remember. I think it's Mando.
I think it's Mando too.
Yeah, because that was Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon and all that. So that did premiere, I think. Was that?
I don't know.
I don't know either. This is sad.
Oh,
This
this
is
is
sad.
very sad, and we call ourselves Star Wars fans. All right, so Mandalorian season
It's
3
been a while.
premiere was March 1st.
March. That's right. Yep.
Um, and then Visions was May
Yeah.
4th, because May the 4th.
May the 4th. Yeah.
And then Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures was April 26th.
Yeah. But that's it. Yeah. So Bad Batch was earlier this year than Mando. So we
Yep.
haven't had anything since Mando finished out as far as live action,
Yep,
week to week series based
that's what it looks like.
shows. So it's been a while. Ahsoka, and then of course, supposed to be getting Skeleton Crew maybe towards the end of this year. Don't know. We've already talked about how the strike is affecting things, but yeah, we'll see if that's going to happen.
Indeed.
And when, speaking of the strike, when it ends, apparently the rumors out there right now are that we indeed may be getting a Lando Disney Plus live action series.
Yeah.
Justin Simeon, who exited the series writing it last summer, apparently has been replaced with none other than Donald Glover and his brother Stephen Glover. And they apparently will be writing Lando as soon as the strikes are over and they can get back to work and do that. So I don't know. How do you feel about the lead actor being the writer?
Oh, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. I think that sometimes that can even be better because then the actor knows what's natural for them, and the character can actually potentially help. Sometimes it depends on the actor. Like, it worked out for Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting, and Ben Affleck in Good Will Hunting. So
Right.
it could potentially. So I don't. To me, it's neither here nor there. Well, before I get into that, let me ask you, throw the question back at you. How do you feel about the lead being one of the writers?
Yeah, I think it really. I think it just depends on their history and their work, and Donald Glover is probably, arguably one of the best talents in Hollywood right now. So, not only acting, but he writes. I believe these guys write the show for Atlanta that they're in.
Oh, I do know that
And
Donald Glover ad-libbed on Community.
oh,
And
really?
I think I'm fairly certain he ad-libbed a good chunk of it. Like, he and this other actor were goofing off, and they ended up filming those bits just to kind of throw in there. So, but if they already have experience writing, then I don't see why not.
Yeah, I believe they do. I haven't seen Atlanta, but I know that he's the creator of that show and one of the co-writers of it, and it's been very highly acclaimed. Like that's been several seasons and whatnot. So I believe he's a good writer, and I believe he can definitely write Lando, especially after playing the character already. Be a little different to write him from scratch, because if all he had to play on was what was in the movies, but he's already played the character in a movie. So I think he knows the tone. He knows what it feels like to be Lando already. What I'm curious most about really is what time period is he writing Lando in?
Right. I mean, the thing is, he could have a springboard based off of what we see in when we read in Shadow of the Sith. Because in Shadow of the Sith, we get a lot about Lando's backstory. I mean, a lot. And I'm not saying he writes it from that point. I'm just saying he could go back, take those nuggets, and create a story based on that. So I feel like instead of creating it completely from scratch, I wonder if that's the way to go.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a way to go, probably. And I saw Billy D. Williams's Twitter. I don't know if you saw this.
I
He
did
he
not.
tweeted out like one of those like graphics that just have words on it, the
Yeah.
background with the words on it. It said something like exciting news coming or something like that. So I don't know if he's said anything. I haven't seen anything since, but the rumor is that he could be in the show and is like doing flashbacks possibly
Love
back
that.
to because there's an open-ended situation that ended at the end of Rise of Skywalker with him and with Janna. So is Janna his daughter? Is that his long lost daughter? What's the backstory of Janna? So I think there's possibility. Now I don't know if you ever read the book. Did you read Last Shot?
I did not.
Okay, so Last Shot is kind of that setup. There's the time period that's after Return of the Jedi, but then it has a flashback back to I think shortly before Solo happens.
Okay.
So there's two timelines going on in that book, and this kind of feels like what I'm seeing and hearing is it feels like it's going to be that kind of thing where it's like possibly two timelines with Billy D and with Donald Glover in the series, which I think is actually pretty awesome.
You made me a little more excited about it because originally I was like, why? And I know that's the same question I asked about Andor. And, I put my foot in my mouth. Andor was fantastic. So I'm a
I mean,
little
why even make the series?
Yeah, why do a Lando series? Like, why?
Well, part of me definitely agrees with you. I think, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made that there's an oversaturation possibly of the same characters. 100% agree with that. But, the other side of me is like, okay, can we get Billy D. Williams one last time?
That's what's making me go, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I like the aspect of taking what we learned from Shadow of the Sith and his backstory and exploring that on screen and, what was set up in Rise of Skywalker. And then, of course, what Donald has already established, the way he plays him at that point. And I think there's a lot of potential. Now, I think it ultimately, to me, will come down to what is the story, what's going to drive us to keep watching this thing each week. Not just the nostalgic of Billy D and the greatness of Donald Glover, but I think it is going to be. I think it's going to be pretty good. I think it'll be pretty good. I'm excited.
It will be. Hopefully.
But don't expect it anytime soon.
Right.
Because even if they started writing right now, I mean, we're still a couple years away from even seeing anything. So.
Oh, yeah.
So that is the big news there on Lando, and then of course the Acolyte has got some interesting news, and and it's really more or less centered around. There's a couple articles. One is talking about apparently the cost of this thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, apparently the rumor is out there, the news is reporting out there that they spent $50 million just on pre-production. And yeah. So it says a new report indicates that Lucasfilm spent over $49 million on the series before filming even began.
What?
Yeah, and then it says Andor reportedly spent $67 million on pre-production costs. Now remember, Andor, there's a difference between, as you know, there's a difference between the volume and a live action set.
Mm-hmm.
Either one has pre-production costs.
Yes.
you're probably spending more money. I think at least what I've researched, you're spending more money on pre-production on the volume because you have to create the environments.
Right.
But Andor, which is surprising, didn't shoot on the volume.
No,
if you remember, they shot on location.
I was about to say.
Now, I don't know. I haven't really read yet. I don't know until later. Probably we won't find out how much of the Acolyte, if anything, was shot on location or volume. But it is, I mean, it's saying it's saying here in relation, The Last Jedi spent about $57 million in pre-production. So now the Acolyte is 8 episodes, so it's a lot longer than a film like The Last Jedi.
Right.
But you do have a big price tag, and so it's saying that I'm trying to see here, it's saying that the total budget apparently is reported to be $250 million for the Acolyte. That's big. It's a lot of money.
Dave, those are the budgets we dream about.
Yes. But I mean, that's a I mean, granted, but I guess you gotta
What?
You gotta I'll take that back. I'm sorry, I might be reading this wrong. And/or reportedly do film. Oh, total budget of the series is around 2. Okay, so okay, so actually that was Andor. $250 million was Andor's 12 episode first season.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So it has not. This report does not show the full budget for the Acolyte. Right now, they're just talking about the $50 million pre-production. So.
Well, do you think some of that pre-production had to go into? Because I know that there have been rumors / reports that they did a lot of training, and there's been a lot of training for fights. So I wonder if a lot of that went into actor care. I hope it's actor care, especially with the strikes going on. Like, I hope that's what it was. But maybe it was like making sure they trained the best of the best. And you got to think, even if you had actors who are like, even if you got Keanu Reeves to do this, Keanu Reeves would swear that he still needed a lot of training. And that's months of training you're talking about. You even look at the lightsaber fights that Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor did. There was a lot that went into that too, and there was a lot of choreography. So you level that up for the Acolyte. So maybe a good chunk of it went in to make sure they got the best training for that. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's correct because the rumors are that there is a big collection of Jedi in this series. So you're right, training them to fight correctly and choreograph them.
Yeah, all of them, because what was it in Attack of the Clones? They all just kind of were swinging at nothing.
Yes. And I think I got to believe part of it is even if you did the volume or you did practical, everybody's got to remember this is the first series, live action series especially, that is in a whole different era of Star Wars.
That's true. So there must have been a lot of set design to go into that.
I think we're going to see some extraordinary locations and planets. Even though we're kind of focused on the dark side, right? It seems like in a way. But they've got to be somewhere too, right? Places we haven't seen before. So that could be part of it too. All the design work that went into all the different options that they could have went through. Because you remember, pre-production means you are preparing for production. So you have a script done, right? You're working from that script. So you're designing, your production design teams are creating drafts and sketching and drawing, and then they go into building or digitally building in the computer if it's going to be on the volume. So based on based on what all these new places that they're creating, it's like they probably went through different renders of a planet or a city or a location. So
well, on top of
being it the first time.
Yeah, well, on top of that, you're probably also dealing with a series of prosthetics for some people, because I don't think all the Jedi were human, and you have to test those. You have to test those prosthetics with the fighting to make sure that they don't fall off or get stuck or sweat off the face or anything like that. So I'm sure a lot of money goes into that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this probably answers it too. There's another article that came out a couple days later. It says the Acolyte stars describe the show's fight choreography and how it brings more aliens, more Jedi, less green screen.
There you go.
So there you go. That sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah. I think sometimes people don't necessarily, I mean, like Dave, you and I are in the world, so we have an idea of this, but I think sometimes it's cool to pull back the curtain and be like, no, this stuff is expensive. It's not cheap to do.
Yes.
When it's cheap, you can tell it's cheap. When it's expensive,
Correct.
You can't tell that it cost anything.
That's exactly right. And it's not necessarily the materials, although materials are a little more expensive these days, but
yes,
it's not necessarily the materials and the technology. Honestly, what you're paying for is you're paying for the time that people are spending building these things, designing these things, the hours and hours and hours of manpower that it takes. That's why credits at the end of these things last 20 minutes. There's so many people, because if you only had, as when we throw 2 or 3 editors at a project, we can shorten the timeline. I mean, if you only had 10 people working on the pre-production, it would take years.
Yes.
So you need more people to shorten that timeline. And more people costs a lot more money. And of course, again, kind of going back to the strike a little bit, that's what they're fighting for is, they want to just be paid more for what they're contributing to these things like that, these series like this. So, yeah. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I might that 50 million or so someone might be like, gosh, that's too much money, but if you want something to look good, there's that whole, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it really, and this, people should know that there's 3 attributes to production: time, quality, and money. And technically the rule is you can't have all 3. Mm-hmm. You only can have 2. So if you want something that's really high quality, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of money. If you want something if you want something done fast, well, that means it's not going to be that good. And it's not going to, cost a lot.
Yep.
But it's not going to be that good. If you want something cheap, I mean, it's going to take a lot of time and you're going to lose quality and stuff like that. So it's like, there's just that mixture of it. So you got to balance that. And there's a way to balance it all. But, there's a lot of people involved and a lot of studios and a lot of money and all this stuff. So it's hard to do that. But anyway, I think, I think they're trying to make a good series out of this thing. And I think they believe in this thing, and it's going to, I'm happy. I can't wait to see it.
Very, very excited for this.
So, no release date obviously for it yet, though, and I'm sure they won't talk about it. It's definitely not coming until 2024. But I believe that the shooting and everything was done prior to the strikes. So, depending on, I haven't heard of post departments going on strike. Maybe they are. I don't know. I haven't heard, but
Man, if they go on strike or if crews go on strike,
yeah,
like Hollywood is shut down at this point, it'd be very shut down.
Shut down. Yes, it would be. So that is that.
But good for them
You
for,
know,
standing up for, being treated fairly and getting what's rightfully theirs. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
so.
absolutely. This past weekend was, in my mind, a very somewhat disappointing San Diego Comic-Con. The infamous Hall H that most people look forward to, where there's big time reveals from Marvel Studios, from DC, from Star Wars, didn't happen. A lot of these studios weren't there. Obviously, a lot of the actors weren't going to be showing up to promote anything. So you didn't have a lot of movie information or TV information come out. What did populate Comic-Con was publications, comics, and games. So naturally, Star Wars Outlaws had a panel at San Diego Comic-Con. And it was more, to me in a way, it was more about what we've already known. There was a kind of a big sizzle reel that they released that was a lot of behind the scenes interviews from the creators. So you learned more about kind of how they processed the idea for the movie or for the game and the storyline and things like that. I mean, they did describe the openness of the game. They're really, I mean, there's a quote here that says the maps in this game dwarf the map seen in Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Whoa.
So, yeah, I mean, it's apparently this thing is just massive.
Did they compare it to Skyrim?
I didn't read anything about Skyrim. This
Okay.
quote here says, our objective is to really get people into a very dense, rich atmosphere, rich adventure, open world adventure that they can explore at their own rhythm. So it is absolutely not a 200 or 300 hour epic unfinishable RPG. This is a very focused action adventure RPG that will take people on a ride and is very manageable. So I think a lot of the comments started coming out like, well, I don't want to, even though I probably would. A lot of people were like, I don't want to play an endless game. I don't want to just wander around. I want a storyline. I want something to follow. I think this game is apparently doing both.
I wonder though, because in a previous episode we talked about what exactly is open world RPG.
Yes.
But I wonder if you could do both, because technically in Skyrim there is a storyline. There is a storyline that you can follow. You can complete the main quest, but then you can, when you're done, you can then say, okay, I'm done with the game, or you can just kind of go on and do your own thing. So I wonder if this has that too. There's a main quest that people can follow, but you can still do your own thing and make it an endless game by your choice.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the way I would. Yeah, I think that's right. I always go back to, I know the setting and the graphics may not be comparable, but I always kind of go back to like Grand Theft Auto in a sense, because you like you said, there is a storyline there that you can do. You don't have to. That's the thing about it. You can go off and kind of wander around, do whatever you want, but there is a storyline in there if you want to choose to follow it. Versus most games like Assassin's Creed or even Jedi Fallen Order, when you play that, Jedi Survivor, like you can wander around, but you can't really do anything until you actually start advancing in the game. So that's where the definite difference of open world versus is it RPG? I guess well, not RPG, but campaign based or story based.
Quest based or whatever you want to call it.
Quest based, yeah. But you're right. I think you can do the storyline, but then you can sit right back down and just start exploring. And because I know it says it's not a 203 hour, but I mean, it's like, man, if you can just go anywhere and everywhere, it could take you a long time to kind of see everything in this game. My question is how many planets are you able to go to?
Oh.
That's my big question. Because you can freely, it looks like, get in your ship, leave the atmosphere, and jump to hyperspace. But how many worlds are we talking about that you can go to? Because there has to be a limit to that, obviously. I mean, you won't, unless this thing's going to be like 2 terabytes worth of game storage.
Take up your full player. That's the only game you're allowed to have on your console is this game. If you have the 500 gigabyte, you're out of luck. Sorry.
Yeah, no way. Yeah,
Have to
no
buy
way.
what are they called? I know for the Switch they have like the memory cards that you can throw in there.
Yeah, you can buy memory cards or external storage. Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck.
I know, right? Yeah, absolutely. But, there wasn't really too much beyond that. We already knew the timeline between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and, the character herself, Kay, and all that stuff. So we kind of knew all that. They just, again, talked a little bit more deeply about the open world aspect of it and how it's the crime syndicates, the world of the underworld as the rebellion is going on and things like that. So, yeah, I do wonder a little bit if any surprise cameos are going to be made at all. I mean, this is another ideal situation where I think you could bring someone in. You could bring someone like Dr. Aphra into this game. In fact, I think that would have been cool to actually play as her. But
well, sometimes games change point of view.
They do, absolutely. Yeah, so because she's big in the comics during this time period. So it could possibly, she's kind of underworld scoundrel thief, kind of person. So that would be cool to see. I think again, I've said it for a long time that it's inevitable that she's going to start showing up in something else, but it hasn't actually happened yet. So maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe she'll be in the Lando series.
Yeah, that's possible too, for sure. Yeah, she's become pretty popular. I mean, she's got her own comic series,
right?
And she's had one for years now. So it'd be good to see her make that jump somehow.
Absolutely, and you're right. Maybe this is the perfect time for that.
Yeah, get her in a game and get her a voice first, and then we get her into animation or live action.
Yes.
Okay, that's the news this week. I don't think there's anything else that's really too important right now to be aware of. Again, Ahsoka does come out in a few weeks. They did a Comic-Con also talk a little bit more about Phase 3 of the High Republic that's coming later this year, which takes place. That's another thing. One of our listeners, Bianca, mentioned on Facebook. She was asking about a timeline order of books for the High Republic. And I posted on there. Let me bring it up. I posted on here that Phase 2, because I said, do you want it in release order or do you want it in chronological order? And she was like, chronological order. And then I posted in there that Phase 2 first, because Phase 2 actually takes place 150 years before Phase 1.
Yes.
And she was actually a little surprised and didn't realize that Phase 2 actually So phase 2 takes place 382 BBY, and phase 1 started 232 BBY. So 150 years. Now phase 3 takes place a year after phase 1. So we go. Now, I don't think you have either. I haven't dived into phase 2 really much yet.
No, there's so much to catch up on.
I know. But because I'm and I don't want to be spoiled really either, but like I'm not sure why yet they jumped back so many, phase 2, why did they go 150 years even further back? Because I believe there's some reasoning for it.
There has to be.
And then they come back. So there's some information that we were supposed to know back then that's going to affect phase 3. So we'll see. And phase 3 is, I think phase 3 is called Trial of the Jedi. You had Light of the Jedi, Quest of the Jedi. I think it's Trial of the Jedi. So, phase 2, phase 3. Yeah, I don't see where I think it's Trials of the Jedi. Anyway, that is so you can find out the information there. They had just a bunch of Trials of the Jedi. Yeah, they had a bunch of titles and some covers for the upcoming books that begin phase 3. If you want to go check those out. Okay, release schedule for some publications. Again, Certain Point of View, Return of the Jedi is in August. Crimson Climb, October 10th. Phase 3, which we just talked about, starts in November with Eye of Darkness and ends in March with Defy the Storm. Comics, this past week, you got Mandalorian, the season 2, number 2 issue. Darth Vader, Black, White, and Red, number 4. Next week, Yoda, number 10. A new series, Dark Droids, number 1. And then August 9th, Star Wars 37 and Return of the Jedi series. Max Rebo has a one-shot. Max Rebo. Didn't he die in Book of Boba Fett? I think he did.
I don't know. I didn't finish it.
Oh, you didn't finish it? Yeah. The Max Rebo band, I think, was in the Tatooine, that casino or that cantina place in there.
Gotcha.
And then it got bombed, and then I think Max Rebo might be dead, unfortunately. But I don't think we ever saw the body, so I don't know. Maybe he got out because he was also on Jabba's sail barge, and he survived that. So
Yeah.
Max Rebo can't be killed.
There you go. That's a secret. He's the ultimate Sith Lord. He has discovered the secret of living forever.
Okay, we're going to finish out this episode, and of course this month of July. Still talking a little bit about the Jedi Order because we want to focus on that a little bit, and then next week we're going to start talking about the character of Ahsoka a little bit more as we get ready for her series. Such an interesting character and what she's evolved into, and again, not really ever realizing she would become so popular. And Rosario Dawson is doing a great job. But we love Ashley Eckstein,
Yes.
voicing her in the Clone Wars and Rebels. But Hannah, just something I was thinking about as we close out this order thing is a little bit more about kind of the role, the Jedi's role, because we keep talking about them as these support people, group of people within the Republic, and they are considered keepers of the peace, right? Guardians. But it's strange to think of how they actually got adopted into that role. We only know of them in the prequels as being an organization that sends people out when there's danger or there's missions or there's issues that happen. Because I was thinking about this, like, if their role, if they're supposed to be keepers of the peace, if they're supposed to be taking care of people and protecting people and things like that, it seems though that there's some instances where we've seen that sends the Jedi to deal with conflict or to deal with issues between groups of people and almost being a mediator in a sense. So you're almost putting Jedi in, kind of dare I say, like dark side type situations. Ones that involve hatred and jealousy and fear and suffering, which is something a Jedi, I would think, unless they're strong enough, should avoid. So I don't know. I was just kind of thinking, like, what are your thoughts on the Jedi? Because we're getting, hopefully, it seems like we're getting their origin. We're going to get their origin story here at some point, a few years from now. Unfortunately, Dawn of the Jedi. Maybe there's a beginning stage of who they are and how they became, but it's a lot of time there. We're probably not going to spend a lot of time throughout the entire 25,000 year history of the Jedi. But I don't know what we know of them in this era that we're in, the Skywalker saga era. Did they, were they in the right spot? Were they doing the right things? Should they have been less involved with issues around the galaxy? I don't know. Would that have helped them in any way?
I got no idea. I have no idea. Because, before we started recording, when you said, oh, we're going to talk about this, it did make me think, yeah, who put these guys in charge?
Yeah, exactly.
Who originally said, we're the keepers of the peace? For all you know, the Sith side is actually the more peaceful side. So, who... I'm just throwing that out there. So, who said that you were in the right and you were all high and mighty to have this form of power and control, which is more Sith-like? So, yeah, it's very... And I agree with you. I think Dawn of the Jedi, or I hope that Dawn of the Jedi will answer a lot more of these questions. I don't know if it originally was based out of the fact that maybe the Sith existed before the Jedi, and the Force was completely out of balance, and then you had one brave soul decide to try to bring balance to the Force, and that's how it happened. Because I know in Clone Wars we see the episode where, no, there's the Force, and then there's the light side and the dark side, and it's always been there, that Trinity type of thing. So I have no idea. I don't know if light was born out of darkness or darkness born out of light. So I don't know if there's a way you can answer that, and I'm very excited to see how Dawn of the Jedi will help establish it, because it could also be that in the beginning they were more like a way seeker. They were more of we're going to kind of let the Force lead us and let us do our own thing, instead of a council of Jedi from the beginning. For as far as we know, the council could be something that was created closer to the beginning of the High Republic. And before then, you had a bunch of rogue Jedi just trying to keep the balance of everything. So, there are a lot of questions that come up with that. Who put these guys in charge?
Yeah. Yeah, and not only that, I think when you think back 25,000 years ago when, I can imagine when the Force was discovered, which is, I think, what we're going to see. Ooh. And how it was discovered and who discovered it and what came of that, which is, a whole text, a bunch of text that explained how to use it and what it's for and things like that. But I think a question that kind of just popped in my head was, well, at some point, who put the lightsaber in your hand?
Right. How did you come up with the idea of finding this rock and being like, oh, I'm going to put this rock in this rod of metal, and then I'm going to do a little boop, and it goes zing, like, but I think that also goes back to the same question of who was the first person to look at a cow and say, I think I'll squeeze its udder and then drink the milk.
That's true. That's true.
It's the same. So,
but
maybe,
but
maybe we'll get
also,
that Trinity in there. I don't know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that too is when you put the lightsaber in your hand. I know, at least in my humble opinion, a Jedi is using that lightsaber as a defense weapon,
right?
Not necessarily as an attack weapon. But we've seen Jedi attack. They're not just waiting back and defending themselves. They go there for a purpose, and they go take this person out, or they destroy this, all these droids or whatever. So when you're a Jedi that is supposedly peaceful and compassionate and sensitive and to life, as soon as you put a weapon in your hand, though, there is a sense of aggression there, and possibly, killing motivation, and I don't know, things like that. So you're towing the line a little bit already with light and dark,
right?
Which what I'm kind of getting at too is that role that they've kind of got into. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that you had fallen Jedi. Mm-hmm. I mean, people don't always are strong enough to stick to those ideals, and I think it would be very difficult to be a Jedi because of that.
Yeah.
So it's so in the end, to me, and again, they lasted 25,000 years before they actually fell. Now, there's probably times in there they fell a couple times maybe and had to rebuild. We don't know. We do know the Sith Empire, like you said, was there at some point and either were directly challenging them or even took over the galaxy. But when they got wiped out, later on, a lot of that probably did have to do with a lot about their misunderstanding, I think, of possibly their role of,
right.
What they should be doing. I do think, though, I mean, they are considered Jedi Knights, right? So I think Lucas's thought process was they were kind of like the Knights of the Round Table, and they were protecting, the knights kind of protected the realm and the king, and maybe that's what Jedi Knights are supposed to be, protectors of the galaxy and the Chancellor and things like that. But like what we saw in episode 1, they're very, very, very much used politically by the government to negotiate truce and go be ambassadors to the Supreme Chancellor and go talk their way into things,
But even then, like in the book with Master and Apprentice, I think it was Master and Apprentice, we learned that that wasn't always a good thing, because the council would have said, hey, because I think in that book, if I remember correctly, they said you need to protect this princess, da, 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 da. And then Obi-Wan finds out, no, we're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's right.
Screw politics. This is bad.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. Huh.
No, it's a I know it's a big, broad question and discussion because we don't know the full history of the Jedi. We're kind of working at the end, right?
Yeah.
What we see is the end of the Jedi and a little bit now of the High Republic, but we're still towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a couple hundred years versus 25,000. So
Insane.
insane history. So there's a lot there, and I don't know, the role that they play is, I still believe that they do good. And I believe I believe that they got too much involved in, at least my conclusion of it, they got too much involved in the aggressive side of politics and the galaxy versus just independently, like you kind of said, letting the Force guide them to, more helping and healing versus, aggression and fighting.
Politics ruining the day? Ruining people's conscience? No.
Yeah.
Never.
Never. Yeah. So interesting thoughts. I don't know. Curious to get anybody else's. But that's the Jedi Order, and what we know of them is what we know of them now in these books and these movies. But we're going to see the history of them and the beginning stages of them, as well as the continuation. At some point, hopefully, if this 15 years after Rise of the Skywalker movie takes place and sees the rebuilding of the Jedi Order, we'll see if they are how they establish themselves and what they believe their role should be going forward. So that's interesting to talk about as we come up on those. Okay, so comments from a couple comments from last episode. JoJo says, thanks for having you three again. I love every episode. Can't wait for Ahsoka in August. JoJo says again, for over a year, I've been writing a book about Star Wars and other stories, Harry Potter and so on. It focuses a lot on balance, good, evil, right, wrong, using power, revenge, true love versus attachment, and so on. Would you be interested in reading it? Perhaps you could pass it on to a larger audience than I ever could. I'm pretty sure Hannah would read it.
I would love to read it.
Yeah.
Send the info our way.
Send it our way. Absolutely. Yeah. Send it our way. I think, JoJo, our email is right here at the bottom of the screen. So, yeah, send it over. I'll get it over to Hannah. I'm not a big reader, sorry. So I'll try, but I'm not a big reader. Hannah will probably read it in a day. So,
what time?
Well, yeah, yeah, maybe a couple of days.
In a couple of days. Yeah, that's
but yeah, that's great. Thanks for that. Thanks for asking. That'd be great. And then, of course, Thrawn Addict says, great to have you three back. Been missing my weekly Star Wars Inside the Force fix. I'm so excited for Ahsoka. It's always been my most anticipated show because I loved Rebels, and this feels like the 5th season. Trailer was great, and agree with Hannah. Showed a lot, but left you wanting more. Excited to see all Rebel characters and finally a live action Thrawn. Absolutely. Totally agree with everything there. And then I already kind of hit on Bianca's comments about wanting that the reading history for High Republic. So if that's on our Facebook group, if you want to get on there, and if you haven't joined, go ahead and send an invite there. Some discussions on Star Wars there. And I think that's all on YouTube right now. So, all right, that is our show for the week. Thanks for joining us. Of course, again, thanks to our patrons. We will be back next week. We got the countdown to Ahsoka happening. We're going to talk a lot about her, a lot about where she's come from, where she's been. I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter and Facebook right now, really talking about, what everybody should be watching to get ready for the series and, things like that. I do want to talk. We'll probably bring some of those things up. I think fortunately for us, we've seen pretty much everything Ahsoka's been in. So we're already kind of ready for it. But no, I agree. I think there's, I actually do think it might be a little tough for some people, because if they haven't seen her history and really understood where she's come from, the things that she's been involved with, the story between her and Anakin, I think it might be harder to get attached to her in her series. But
you better start watching now.
You better start watching now. You got a little over 3 weeks, which is plenty of time, because you don't have to watch everything. There's actually, I think even on Disney Plus, there's actually an Ahsoka suggested, episodes to watch.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah, like from Clone Wars and then from Rebels and things like that. So, because she's not in every episode, obviously. She's more in the Clone Wars. She's only in a handful of episodes in Rebels. But Clone Wars is obviously where she has developed those relationships with Anakin and Padme, Obi-Wan, things like that. So
probably watch Clone Wars, then read the book Ahsoka, and then watch Rebels.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's the timeline right now, and then watch Mandalorian if you want to see kind of the setup of the timeline where she is for her own show.
Or after the book, watch Tales of the Jedi. Those 3 episodes. Yep. Then Rebels, then Mandalorian, and Book of Boba Fett.
Mandalorian. Yep. Book of Boba Fett, yeah. Which you haven't seen.
I haven't seen, but it's been spoiled for me, so...
Yes. Her talking to Luke, which is
Spoiler
awesome.
alert.
It's awesome. Spoiler. You're probably the only one that hasn't seen that. So... I don't think anybody else... There's probably more people out there, though, that have just seen that scene and then nothing else from Book of Boba Fett, because they heard about that scene and needed to see it. So
right, they fast forward everything until they got to that scene.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, thanks everybody. We appreciate it. This year's flowing by. I mean, we're almost in August and getting ready for Ahsoka. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. May the Force be with you.